It's really good to see a resurgence of those tactical shooters that were kind of akin to the old school Rainbow Six and the old school Ghost Recon. And that's what we've got with Zero Hour. I'd say it's probably most similar to the old SWAT games, but it definitely fits in that genre, the late 90s, early 2000s tactical shooter. And I actually came across it after looking at a similar game called Ground Branch, which was actually made by some of those old Rainbow Six developers. And Zero Hour happened to be on sale, so I thought, you know what, let's give it a try, let's see what it's like. And yeah, I've been looking for a game like this for a long time. I never really understood why they stopped making these kind of games. Obviously we know the Rainbow Six and the Ghost Recon series have moved on to different types of games, and no one's really filled the niche that was left by those early tactical shooters. So it is definitely exciting to see that game developers are starting to make games in this genre, and I think we will hopefully see a resurgence of these kind of games, because I think currently we're at a time where it doesn't cost too much money to develop these kind of games. So I know that there's 3 off the top of my head, so obviously Ground Branch, Zero Hour, and also Ready or Not, with Ready or Not probably having the best advertisement of the bunch, because that's one that I was actually made aware of, whereas the others I kind of stumbled across. So that one's had decent advertisement, but all these 3 have got pretty small teams as far as I understand it. So I don't think it takes a massive budget or a massive amount of development to get these games going. Not to say that they haven't put a lot of work into them, but I mean, that's good news for us in the age of Kickstarters and stuff like that. You'd hope these kind of projects can get off the ground, get the funding that they need. So that's what makes me kind of a bit optimistic over the future of these games. Obviously all 3 that I've mentioned are in early access. And my understanding of early access these days, I just don't really know what's going on. Some games stay in early access for absolutely ages. Others really try and get the ball moving and try and get a full release out of the game. So hopefully these games are going to be in that latter category where they try and get a full release, try and get something a bit more concrete, and don't kind of hide behind the early access badge, which I've seen certain other games do. So yeah, if these games all get a decent amount of exposure, I'm hoping they will be popular, definitely be popular with me and, for example, my brothers as well. I know they enjoy these kind of games as well. And so let's kick this kind of looking at this genre off by looking at Zero Hour, which I've only played a little bit of. I've only played 3 or 4 missions. So this is going to be a bit of a first impression. I can kind of see the direction they're going in and the type of game that it is from those 3 or 4 missions. First thing I'll say before getting into some of the more details is, yeah, as an overall picture, I think Zero Hour's a great game. It's a style of game that I haven't been able to play. I have to go back to the old, some of the old Rainbow Six type games to get this style, and they've nailed it. I think they've done a really good job. Overall, it's an extremely fun game, and it's a type of game that I can't play. I haven't had this experience elsewhere recently. It's that old style which they've done a good job of bringing back. Like I said at the start, it does seem more similar to those SWAT kind of games as opposed to maybe the Rainbow Six style, but it's kind of a mixture of all those old tactical shooters. So I just wanted to give that overall picture. I think well done to the developers for this game. They've done a really good job in bringing this style to life and making it a good, solid game. Now, that being said, there are definitely some things where I think they could improve on. Some of them, I've got to say, I think are just personal preference. So it's quite hard to distinguish between actual objective criticisms and what my personal preference is. So let me know down below if you disagree with anything that I'm about to say. But yeah, let's get into it. So let's just start with the mission structure and the way it works. They give you kind of points for completing levels, and if you do the level better, you get more points. And you need a certain amount of points to unlock levels as you go down the mission list. Personally, not a big fan of the way that's done. I prefer it just to be, you complete this mission, you unlock the next mission, and that kind of style. It's got more of you've got different scenarios that you can kind of pick and choose from without any real flow or any real underlying objective behind it. And I can kind of see why you'd do that. It gives you a bit more freedom to just create different scenarios for people to play through, which is nice. But personally, I mean, if I think back to stuff like the old Ghost Recons, although they were, I mean, I cannot remember the story of those games at all, but there was something there at least to kind of string things along. And me personally, I prefer it where you complete a mission, you unlock the next one, and you just go through the game like that. And on that note, and I'm going to be referring back to some of these older Ghost Recon, older Rainbow Six games, because that's what they're similar to. On that note, I think they've got a bit of text before a mission to give a bit of background information. And I just think if you just have someone narrating it like they did in the old Ghost Recon, so you can skip it if you don't want to hear them. It's not like you've got to force the user to listen to it, but just have someone narrating that text so you get a bit of background information of where you're going in and why you're going in. And it's just a nice little feature for me personally. I think it would be a nice thing to add to these missions. I do like the movement. It takes a little bit getting used to the inertia and the very slow movement, but I do like it. It just gives you that methodical feel. So I think they did a really good job on the movement, and also the gunplay is a lot of fun. The shooting feels good, it feels impactful, the weapons, so I think the gunplay, they did a good job. I would have liked to see more customization. For whatever reason, I don't particularly like the look of the 1x scopes, so I'm kind of forced to use the 2x scope, and there's only really the one 2x scope that I can see, which is like this green scope. And yeah, I'd just like to add a bit more variability, maybe have just a clear scope for the 2x, and obviously more weapons would be extremely welcome. Or I should say at this point, actually I should have said this at the start, I was playing these solo. I think I probably will try and get my brothers involved. We'll do a few co-op missions, but I was playing these solo, and the game definitely seems like it's a bit more, actually I really had a lot of fun playing solo, so I don't want to say it's only made for co-op. You can still have a lot of fun playing solo this game, but I think it is made and designed a bit more for playing with a team, with a group of your friends or whatever it might be. But yeah, in terms of the mission structure and just building up a bit of a storyline, because they do a really good job on certain missions of having a really good ambience and making it kind of tense. There was one mission in particular that I played, I think it was maybe the third mission. Like I said, I haven't been through all of them. They made it really, really tense, and it felt really good. I just had no idea why I was going in there. I think you got to take out a single guy. It was kind of baseless. It felt really good, felt really tense, really good ambience, but it was just kind of, if there was a bit of a story behind it, it would have made a massive difference. And I know saying a story can be a lot of work, but yeah, like I'm saying, just needs a bit of narration, maybe nothing too much, just something that is a bit more concrete underlying these missions. And then getting into the combat, like I said, good gunplay. One thing they do, which is where it's more similar to SWAT, is you can get them to surrender, and there's all different kinds of things where if they're slowly going to point their gun at you, then they're like hostile and you can shoot them without having a penalty. But if you shoot someone that you think is kind of surrendering, then you get a penalty for doing that. Now, I kind of, and my memory of the SWAT games isn't that good, but I kind of remember in those games it made a bit more sense because it was more of a civilian environment where it's kind of, you know, like you'd get civilian bad guys, and sometimes they're not all that bad kind of thing. So making them surrender makes sense. But in this game, everyone you seem to face are like proper militants, and it's kind of doesn't, in my mind, it just didn't really make sense that they'd be, you know, if you've got someone with like an AK-47 and they're facing you with, they're looking at you with their gun. I'm just maybe I'm breaking all kinds of Geneva Conventions, but I'll just shoot that guy. Especially if there's people behind them which could see you and could start shooting you as well. I don't want to wait for this guy to just surrender and put his hands up while his mates behind him are going to shoot me. So it just felt a little bit out of place getting them to surrender. There were occasions where it made sense. If you'll sneak up behind a single person, maybe you don't execute them and instead you just get them to surrender. And this is where, yeah, this is probably one of a point which is more personal for me. I would prefer just taking people out, so it could just be a personal issue. I didn't really like the whole surrendering and that kind of stuff. I prefer to just sweep through, and I do have a lot of fun when I'm just taking people out. I end up losing points, but it's a lot of fun. And yeah, on that point, what I would say as well is there's 2 difficulty levels. There's regular and hardened, and it would be good for there to be a difficulty level in between those, because in my experience regular was a bit too easy and hardened was, you just get into, hardened was just at the point where yeah, there's a big gap between the 2 difficulty settings. Something in between I think would be perfect for me. But yeah, it is in early access, so I'm sure there's still a fair amount of development that they're planning, and I'm sure they probably would be addressing some of the issues I brought up anyway. But that's pretty much it. I've just blitzed through some points that I noted down for this game. I just kind of wanted to bring up in this video the excitement that this kind of this type of game is making a resurgence. Hopefully they do well, these kind of games. Hopefully you guys buy them and enjoy them. I will try and cover the other ones. Definitely want to try Ground Branch. I think another personal thing for me is I prefer, from what I've seen of Ground Branch, I prefer those kind of environments. From what I've seen of 0 Hour, it's a lot more nighttime building missions, and I do like that. I do prefer also some kind of more open worldy stuff, which I think is more Ground Branch. So that's not a criticism of the game, that's just a personal preference of mine. But yeah, so just to conclude with 0 Hour, I do think it's a really good game. It's a unique kind of game. I imagine it's a lot more fun as well if you're playing with some friends. If you've got some people that can fill up your group and you can work as a team, I think that'll make it really, really fun. But even if you're playing solo, I personally had a lot of fun. And I'm going to play it all the way through, there's no doubt about that. I'm going to do all the missions. I would like it if it was more sequential, there's a bit more structure, maybe an underlying story. But hopefully that's something that they are going to work on. I think they've done a really good job so far, so well done to the developers over there. They've done a great job. I would recommend, I picked it up pretty cheap on sale, so I would recommend just checking it out. There's not really many games like that as well. It's good fun, check it out, see what you think of it, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you leave a like, and also think about subscribing. Cheers guys.